Hi, welcome back to Auxhart Gardening. My name is Rachel and today is our week 9 garden tour. So for those of you that are new here, I am in South Carolina. This is zone 7B and I started this garden in ground. I garden in ground and in containers a little bit, but I'm probably transitioning away from containers now that I've moved to this space where I can have this garden. I actually planted out this garden on May 28th of this year and it is August 4th, and so this is what can happen in just a few short months. So as you come into the garden, I've got this cute little path that I have recently put in, and on my right side going down the edge are some sunflowers. Sunflowers have actually been blooming and they are pretty drop dead gorgeous. They're covered in bees. Oh my god. Look at that. Covered in bees. And they are a few different colors. This was from a mixed pack that I just handed to my friend Krista, and she was like, what do you want to put where? And I'm like, I don't know. Surprise me. And I have been surprised. These are beautiful. They are also making it more and more difficult to walk down my row of tomatoes. On my left are most of my tomatoes. Some of them are very large. These aren't supposed to be a large variety. These are supposed to be Amish paste tomatoes, which should be kind of more like this. But a lot of tomatoes, especially heirloom varieties, tend to fasciate, which means they fuse together and make these mega tomatoes. So I've got quite a few of these coming on. And also interspersed with the tomatoes, I have along this 16-foot row 3 climbing bean plants that I put in just to see how they would coexist with the tomatoes. These ones are just now starting to flower, so I haven't seen any beans off of these yet. Oh look, there's a little baby bean right there. But I really don't actually need any extra beans because, as you'll see, the bush beans are taking off. In the front here I have a purple basil and a cinnamon basil. This is just one plant. It has gone crazy, but I actually haven't harvested from it as much as from the purple basil, which I actually do harvest a lot of for pesto. And so on this left side of the tomatoes are my eggplant, and I've been harvesting from these some. This one actually is getting kind of huge. And these are marigolds. These ones I planted from seed. I did not get from the store, and they get so much taller. You can see back there, that is a marigold bush from the store, and this is the one that I planted. So I've been harvesting some tomatoes. Oh, something got to this one. This has been happening a little bit out here. I think a lot of that might still be usable, but I've been trying to get to them a little early because of that, and also because of the rain. Tomatoes here tend to split. You can see kind of just the first signs of it up at the top right there. So a lot of times I'm pulling tomatoes right as they're first starting to blush. That way they can come inside and ripen where it's safe on the counter. So I gotta show you guys something. I was just sticking my nose down here because there were tomatoes to harvest, and then I looked up and literally right in front of my face, look at these beans. I thought I didn't have any beans, but apparently I do. I wish I could remember off the top of my head what I planted here, but like a bad gardener, I didn't label it. This is one of those things. I was just walking around the garden one day. I was like, the garden looks a little empty. Let me just throw some stuff in here. Yeah, I mean, well, so it's purple. and it has purple flowers. So I should be able to go through my seed packets and figure out what it is and put it up here on the screen for you. Look at how pretty this trio is, the nasturtium and the marigold and the jigsaw pepper. This plant is just beautiful. Even in the bright sun, the variegation is coming in with these cute little purple details. And then the fruits themselves are just like teeny cute little things too. I don't think, oh, maybe at the bottom here. Yeah, you can see that red one through there. We'll have to pick that. But to my right, some beautifully red, ripe peppers. These are Criolla de Cochina. Oh. These are, oh no. Oh wait, that's just on the outside. All good. These are from Nicaragua. They're sweet pepper. And I started growing them because a good friend of mine is from Nicaragua. And I just thought that it was very cool. I just saw in the seed packet that it was from there. So Yamil, if you're watching, I grew these for you, kind of. So along the back row of the garden, we have more sunflowers that have started to bloom. And hopefully one of the ones back there in the corner is like a mammoth sunflower and will eventually get to be incredibly tall and cool. But the rest of these are just more of a normal sunflower variety. I can't remember what all of them are. Some of them are this pale yellow, which is very cute. And of course there were the red ones and the kind of more standard yellow colored ones over there. Now if you haven't been following along this whole time, these sunflowers back here actually got eaten down by deer very early on, down to stumps basically, and I was pretty sure that they were not going to grow back, and a few of them didn't, but a lot of them did. And they did the thing that you see plants sometimes do, like basil in particular, you might notice. So you cut off the leading growth tip right from the base of where the main leaves came out, 2 more stems grow up. And that's kind of what happened with these sunflowers. So I think they're bushier than they normally would be. And I think it's very cool. I am so impressed with these plants. The beans also that I'm about to show you were eaten down to nubs by the deer and came back and produced on time, actually like a day early. I was harvesting from them, and so I'm just like kind of blown away by my garden this year and by the resiliency of these plants. I do need to show you though that not all is well in the land of peppers. A lot of them have whatever this disease is that has been spreading by contact, I believe, and you can kind of see the early stages are these little yellow circles with the dark in the center. And I was coming out here and trying to pull off all the leaves that were infected and throw them out, and I just couldn't get to all of them fast enough, and it's been spreading a lot. You can see, I mean, the plants for the most part still look okay, but like there's this one over here where it had a lot of great peppers on it, and harvesting a lot of them with just large mushy spots. So, you know, not all is perfect here in the garden, but because I planted arguably way too much, I am still going to get some harvest from these plants. And it looks like some of them are doing a lot better with this than others. For example, this Tabasco plant is looking great despite being next to a neighbor that is doing very not so great. So right in front of me, if you look past the sprawling pumpkin, is the bush bean row. And this is the row that I was saying the deer ate down, and look at it now. It is just so lush. I have harvested buckets and buckets of beans from these plants. You can see I probably should harvest some more. It is so hard to stay on top of it. especially with how the rest of the garden is very overgrown. I have to very carefully, especially in this area, just kind of like straddle the plants while I harvest, and it can be kind of grueling work because I have to bend over instead of squatting down. So at the front are Blue Lake bush beans, and then right about here they transition to purple teepee, and that's what I have going all the way back, except for one or two plants that I planted back when I wasn't sure if they were going to grow back, and those are some other green bean. I can't quite remember what kind. And interestingly, so right here in front of me, these plants are the least happy looking plants with these curled leaves, and these ones actually have not been putting on much, if any, fruit. And I'm not really sure why that is. It's all concentrated to this one area, and everybody else looks perfectly fine. So I'm not entirely sure what could be going on with those. These purple teepee beans, though, they have these gorgeous flowers, and then the beans come in this pretty purple color. And unfortunately, these turn green once you cook them. But they are very pretty to look at in a harvest basket. This is maybe the best view of the whole garden. More and more wild every week. And as we come down, my favorite part is this arch and the way these noodle beans just hang down from it. Just absolutely gorgeous. Now, noodle beans, unlike the purple teepee beans, will stay purple when you cook them. So if you want to grow something that will for sure be purple, then these are the way to go. For a while I tried stopping the pumpkin from growing, but as you can see, it is kind of taking over. You can see this vine growing all the way up here. And at this point I just don't have the effort to stop it. Here's a noodle bean that I am allowing to go to seed. So it's much longer than the ones that I've picked for eating and much fatter. But I'm gonna go ahead and let some of these mature and save the seeds out of them. I swear every time I come out here, this spider is bigger. Oh my god. She looks freaky, but you can see she's eating something, and that's a good thing. That means she's doing her job, and I'm gonna do my best not to disturb her. Although I will tell you this, when I'm standing near her, every little vine that touches my back makes me jump. So it's not that I'm like entirely not afraid. I have, a healthy respect for these spiders. But I'm not going to kill her or remove her. I'm going to let her do her job in my garden. I am struggling to figure out what to do with all of the beans that are up there. So there's quite a few sitting on top of the trellis, and I can't reach them. So maybe all of those will also be allowed to mature into seeds, because I don't know, I'm not going to be able to get my step stool out here to get them. I'm not going to be able to stand close enough with all the vegetation that I'm currently battling, particularly this pumpkin that thinks that it owns the whole garden. Now, while that last trellis was lush, this one is full of plant, but it is full of very sad looking plant. And even with how sad this is, it is still making cucumbers. I think I see some down over here. Yeah, wow, those got really away from me. Yeah, but these plants are still making fruit, and I'm going to let them keep doing that. I am jarring some pickles, and that's most of what I'm doing with them at this point. So normally I would go straight through there and show you the tomatoes that are back there, but instead we're gonna have to go all the way around because my garden has gotten so overgrown that I can't even walk through it all anymore. And we're gonna come in back where all the sad squash are. So back here is the second tomato patch, and oh wow, can y'all see that butterfly with the big wings? Oh my goodness. Anyways, so this is the second tomato patch, and I've got a ton of zinnias kind of scattered back here in various colors, which is what the butterfly really enjoys. And I still have not yet figured out what I'm going to do about this area. I had strung it up. It was trellised in a Florida weave, and now it's just a mess. I don't have a good explanation for that. I just let it get away from me. This garden has been a lot more work than I anticipated. It's been like, I was like thinking in my head when I made it, like, oh, I wonder if this is gonna be big enough. Like, this is definitely big enough. But I'm probably gonna have to come through and prune very heavily to even be able to get at my fruits at this point. One of you mentioned that you just imagine like dropping into it from the air, and I think that's really funny, and if that was possible, I would totally do that. I don't know if my mic is good enough, but it's just barely starting to rain. Can you hear it? It's so calming. So lastly, back in this corner, we have the corn. This is kiddo corn given to me by another YouTuber, UT3200. I can never get those numbers right. I'm so sorry. But yeah, it is growing amazingly well, and I'm super excited to see how it's going to turn out. And I have this one sad little acorn squash on one of the plants that got destroyed by vine borers. And the plant was like barely hanging on for a while, and now it is like pretty much dead. So I think no matter how ripe this is, it is time to pull it. And I was right, these are golden acorn squashes that I planted. The biggest pumpkin I have right now is somewhere in this mess right here. I can't even safely walk over there to show you. You can kind of see its butt poking out right there. I have some other pumpkins I can show you so you can see kind of what it's supposed to look like. There's this one here right in the front. This is maybe about half the size of the one that's over there. And this plant has been putting on more baby fruits pretty much everywhere. It is the one of the 3 pumpkins that I've actually seen putting out fruit. And I don't know why that is. They were all the same seeds. Oh, look, there's another one back there. So yeah, it looks like I will have at least a few pumpkins. Honestly, with how much of my garden I'm allowing these pumpkins to have, I better get pumpkins. So the last thing that I always show you guys is the container garden. These are the containers that I set up while I was moving, when I had no idea what my garden space was going to look like and when I was going to be able to get it put in. So a lot of this is peppers. I don't have any tomatoes in containers, but it's like peppers and basil and a few herbs. I've been having to stay on top of the basil. It keeps trying to flower. You can see I recently cut it down. And the basil over here isn't looking quite as happy as the basil in the ground, which is understandable. But it is still happy enough to produce enough basil for me to have enough pesto put away now, as I did at the entire end of last season, last year. We've got some ripe Bueno Mulata peppers. These are so pretty. Oh, and I'm leaning over the basil to do this, and the smell is just wafting up. Look at those. Those are so pretty. Here we have another one of those spiders. You can see better the web here. I think these are called like orb weavers or something. They're kind of scary looking, but I trust them weirdly, and it's because I trust them to stay put. Spiders in my house freak me out because I don't trust them to stay put. I think they're gonna come get me. But this spider in the garden, I trust her to stay put and to not bother me. And so that makes her a lot less scary, especially when you're getting close. You know that she's not ever going to jump at you, and that can make a big difference. For example, I'm going to very confidently reach in here and grab this pepper, and it's wiggling her web, but she doesn't care. And also, I don't know what this is. This is another one of those where I'm like, I don't know what I planted. It's not the same as this other one that I don't know what it is, that I'm thinking might be a genetic variation of the Oda pepper, but these ones started out green and not purple, so I know that it's not the same as that. They are pretty spicy though. And it is definitely time to start picking a lot of my Serrano peppers. These, because you pick them green, I find it very hard to tell when they're ready. So usually what I do is I wait until the first one starts turning red, and then I pick all of the ones that look like they're from the same flesh, that are about the same size, and I hope that that is good enough. I'm excited for these Serranos. I use them to make salsa. I got this salsa recipe from a good friend of mine named Ina and her husband Hugo, and it's like, it is my go-to salsa recipe. Honestly, like, I should try others. Like, I should, but this one is just so good. Like, why do I need to try others when I already have this amazing salsa recipe? And if you're curious about what this amazing salsa recipe is, I actually did do a video on it. It is in the Harvest and Cook playlist. I harvest tomatoes and talk about that, and then I show you how to make the salsa. Something else I find useful to think about when picking peppers is, if you watch what I'm doing, I am lifting so the stem curves towards the pepper, and I usually lift from the curve up into the plant and snap it off right at that part where it connects to the plant. And if the pepper is ready to be picked, usually that's pretty easy to do. And if the pepper is not ready to be picked, that part will not be as stiff, and it will be a lot harder to kind of pop the pepper off the plant. So for me, that's one of the signs I use to determine if I really should be picking a pepper or not, is if it yanks off easily like that. Something else you can use to determine if a pepper that never turns colors is ready is you can look for something called corking. So those are the little tiny lines that show up. They kind of look like stretch marks on your pepper, and that can be a good sign that your pepper is done growing and has started to ripen. I haven't explicitly shown it to you guys in a while, but do you remember how pretty this fish pepper plant is? Look at the stripes on these peppers. They are so cool. And then they ripen to like kind of a pretty solid red, which is disappointing if I'm being honest. But the rest of the time they look gorgeous. And when you can see those peaks of color in with the variegated leaves, so pretty. My Tabascos on my Tabasco plant are starting to turn. And wow, you can see how quickly this turns into an absolutely gorgeous plant with all of these peppers sticking straight up and then turning colors. And my cayenne is just loaded down with peppers. Gorgeous, beautiful fruits. Probably gonna freeze these and then dry them all at once to make a powder. I should talk about this. I've been avoiding it because I don't know what to say other than I've been a very lazy gardener. Some of these plants went to seed, so like the thyme went to seed, the oregano went to seed. So the fact that it looks like this, it's not all neglect. And you can see it's actually coming back. But yeah, I bought some lavender and some rosemary at the store, and then I set them here and I proceeded to not take care of them at all. Why did I do that? I don't know. I walk past them every time going out to the main garden, and somehow I just thought like, oh, it's not going to be that much longer until I put them in the ground. They'll be okay. It won't be that much longer. They'll be okay. And now it has been a while and they are not okay. So if you're ever being hard on yourself for letting plants die, just remember that I have that whole garden back there, and I also still let plants die for no reason. I could have watered them, but I didn't. Alrighty guys, and that is all I have for you today. If you are not already subscribed, I recommend subscribing, especially if you like the garden tour content. I put out a new video every single Wednesday, and sometimes I put out videos in the middle of the week, time permitting. But thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, I wish you all happy gardening.